this week, like I said, it's a little bit different. I'm sitting down this week, and I'm taking a little easy here because I had something happen here on my leg, and I just don't want to push it. So I'm not going to be moving much. So I just hope to keep your attention, I might be waving more. Yeah, we'll do wave some more, and we may do an intermittent, group calisthenic or something, just to just to do something to try to hold everything together for us. So we're looking at this week as Noach. Now, the interesting thing about Noach is that we read before we get to this parsha that said Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And that's interesting because it's actually a play on his name. It's a play of words that the Father is giving us. It's Noach, Hen. It's Nun, Het, is Noach, and Hen is Het, Nun. So it's a matter of, the grace is his name backwards. So if we learn to rest, then we can enter into his grace. Well, what do we rest in? Well, we need to learn to rest in him. And that rest is a different word than Shabbat. Shabbat is like cease, to stop. Rest is, there's still work, you can still do things, but we're learning to rely on something. We're learning to rest in the Almighty, and because in him we truly can find peace. Okay? So we're learning to rest. And as we learn to rest in him, of course, he extends and he gives us his grace. Amen? As another side note, here we find an example where grace is given in the Torah. And, grace was not a new concept that just appeared in Matthew. Grace has been all through the entire word of Yahweh. And so when we're reading these things, we need to recognize them when we find them. We need to point out where grace is given, because it's one of his attributes, isn't it? One of the 13 attributes that's given when he puts Moshe in the cleft of the rock and he walks by. I mean, he is gracious. So his grace is given to us. And so that didn't just all of a sudden change. He's always been that way. Okay, so that's something that we need to keep in mind as well. So laying the foundation for the story of Noach, there were 10 generations from Adam to Noach. Interesting thing about this is if you look at the names that were given and the meanings of the names, it kind of tells the story of the Redeemer, y'all. It tells the story of the Mashiach. And what does it mean by that? Well, it says how we were here, we messed it up, but Yahweh sent down his servant to fix it. So look at that. So Adam is human being or mankind. Adam doesn't just mean, okay, this is a guy named Adam. Adam means the human race. Okay, mankind is what we're looking at. So Adam, Shet, often thrown Seth, Set, means substituted. Enosh, mortal. Enoch, right? Enosh, mortal. And so what we did, we substituted what was given to us initially, that which was immortal, for mortal, right? Kenan, which means fixed chamber or dwelling. Well, what happened after the sin? Our dwelling became different. Mehalalel is the praise of God. Yered is to descend or coming down. This is also where we get the word Yardin, like the Jordan River, Yerad. Yered means to descend or come down. Hanoch, which is Enoch. Hanoch means to narrow, initiate, discipline, dedicate, or train up. Methuselah, man of the branch, shoot or dart. Hey, what's one of the names for the Messiah? The branch? Lamech, powerful. Again, if you look in the Paleo-Hebrew, the Lamech, we have a Lamed, and it's the shepherd's staff, and then the water, the Mem, and then the open palm of the hand was the Het. So what we have is the shepherd's rod, water, and an open palm. So we're telling the story leading up to who? Noah, which was judgment that came through water given from our chief shepherd, but yet they rested in the palm of his hand. And so we not only have the story of Noah, but we also have some things that we see in the work of the Messiah as well. So again, one of these things where when you take a look at how the scripture's laid out, I don't think it's any coincidence when we see how the Father even gives down to the names that he's giving. And so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so. Well, why put it in there if it's not important? And so it doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It's just a matter of maybe we need to take some time and sometimes just dig into it to see what's there. All right, Genesis 6:9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. How many of you guys would like to have that kind of testimony with the Most High? Say, okay, so this guy right here, he's a just man, he's a good guy, perfect in his generations, and he walked with the Most High. First off, the thing perfect doesn't mean he was perfect. It means he was upright. Let's look at a couple things. In his generations. Okay, so what does it mean in his generations? If we go back, the word for generations is toldot, the origin or the beginning. Toldot is generation. So what are the origin or the beginning of rest? Let's look at it. Genesis 5:28. Again, this is going into the end of last week's portion. Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son, and he called his name Noach, saying, "This same shall comfort us," or give us rest, concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which Yahweh had cursed. So how is Noach going to bring rest to the people? Because when judgment came, Noach found rest in the hands of Yah. Okay? And that's something that we can learn from. That's an example that was given to us. So what we find here is that Noach was called righteous and blameless. Do you understand something very interesting? Noah was the first man that was called righteous. That's pretty neat. Because, I mean, you think of the people that lived, from Adam to Noach, none of them were righteous? No, not necessarily. Not really saying they weren't. But Noah was the first man that is recorded where it was given and said to him, he is righteous and he is blameless in his generation. Wow. In other words, the world was very bad, but there was this one righteous guy. Which we'll get to a little later, but did you ever stop to think about, it didn't even say that his family was righteous? I'm not saying they weren't. I'm just saying it doesn't say that. The scripture says that he was righteous. And so can us being righteous be a benefit to our family that may not be righteous? Of course. Then we have the scriptures where it says, and your whole household will be delivered. Yeah, because of you. Because you make an impact in their lives. So Noah was righteous, he was upright, and he was lawful. The word is tzaddik. What is tzedakah? Charity. Tzaddik is righteousness. Tzedek is righteous. So he was righteous, upright, and he was tamim. Tamim is blameless, without spot, without defect. It didn't say he never did anything wrong, just there was no blame there. There was nothing attached to him there that could be given over to that. So in his life, in his walk, in his ways, in his conversation, in his behaviors, in the things that he did and said, it was to give glory to Yahweh. And therefore he was upright and he was blameless in his generations. So what is righteousness? Genesis 7:1. So Yahweh said to Noah, go into the ark, you and all your household. Now look at this. For I have seen that who? You are righteous before me in this generation. Why didn't he say, because I have seen that your family is righteous before me in these generation? Again, I'm not saying they weren't. I'm just saying, why doesn't it say that? So again, we have the idea of Noah being called righteous had an impact not just on his life, not just in the world, but on his immediate family. If we go to Genesis 15, verse 6, we also see someone else who has been given to call righteous. Who is that? Avram. It says that he believed the Lord, he believed Yahweh, and it was counted to him as what? Righteousness. Why would believing be counted as righteousness to him? Because it's not just like we think today. Today we say to believe, it means I understand, I comprehend, or I agree, or something like that. But here when we're saying believe, no, there's an action involved there. It's okay, Yahweh said this, so therefore I'm going to do what he said to do. That means you believe. And so there is a substance, there is a visible aspect of believing that was given there to the righteous. And again, we have that in relationship to Avram and Noah as well. Genesis 18:19. Speaking of Avraham, by this time his name had been changed to Avraham. Speaking of him, it says, for I have chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to do something. Now, he says, I have chosen Avraham to command his children and his household. Mind you, there were people in Avraham's household that were not his descendants. There were people in his household that joined in with his family because they either loved him or they loved the God that he served, or they wanted to be a part of the covenant that he was in. So in order to be in his household, you had to be in covenant. And so he says, because he commands his children and his household after him to do something. What does it say to do? To keep the way of the Lord. So how do you keep the way of the Lord? Well, it says by what? Doing what? Righteousness and justice. Now the thing is, you say when you do something, people say, oh, you're trying to be righteous, or you're trying to do something in your own righteousness. Guys, not at all. But understand, if we are redeemed, we need to walk in his righteousness, right? So what does it mean to walk in his righteousness? To walk in his righteousness does not mean, well, now that I'm redeemed, I can continue to go back and live whatever way I want to with no regard to what his word says. It doesn't mean that. So it means the opposite of that. Now that we are redeemed, we will live our lives in accordance with what he desires, not what we desire. Because what does redeem mean? It means you've been purchased. You belong to him. So therefore, we live according to his ways, not our own. So again, by doing righteousness and justice. And what's the word that's commonly translated for justice? Mishpat. So what does it mean? What does mishpat normally mean? These are the areas of life that deal with how we relate to one another, how we handle one another, how we do situations with one another. When we have disagreements, how do we handle this? So that is righteousness and justice. And this is what it was speaking to Abraham, that he and his family and his household were to walk in righteousness and justice. Why? This is interesting. It says, so that Yahweh may bring to Abraham what he promised him. Guys, I don't know if you knew this, but Yahweh wants to bless you. But he cannot bless rebellion. See, that's the part we forget. So to walk in the blessings that the Father desires for us, we need to walk in the Word that he's given us. And we do not try to walk in the Word that he's given us to try to earn his righteousness. No, we walk in the Word that he's given us because he is righteous. Okay? And furthermore, what does it mean to walk in his righteousness? Well, we'll cover that. Look at this. Deuteronomy 6:24. How do we do righteousness? It's not just our definition of it. How do we do righteousness? Deuteronomy 6:24 says, and Yahweh commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahweh our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as we are this day. And it will be righteousness for us. Stop. And it will be righteousness for us. What does that mean? That means something happening here is called righteousness. So it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to what? Do all this commandment before the Lord our God as he has commanded us. So very simply put, we are walking in his righteousness when we walk in his word. And we desire to walk in his ways. Psalm 5:8 says, lead me, O Lord, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before me. As he makes his way straight before us, we are walking in his righteousness because we're walking in his word. Psalm 23:3, he restores my soul. He leads me in paths of what? Righteousness. Why? For his name's sake. Guys, when he says he leads me in paths of righteousness, that means there are paths that are called righteous. Well, what paths are called righteous? It's his word. It's his ways. Things that we learn to do. Psalm 33:4. The word of the Lord is upright. All his work is done in faithfulness. He loves righteousness and justice. There we have again righteousness and justice. He loves righteousness and justice, and the earth is full of the steadfast love of the Lord. Psalm 89:14. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. And steadfast love and faithfulness go before you. So without righteousness and justice, there's no throne of Yah that's there. What is the foundation of his throne? Righteousness and justice. When you guys go before a king and he's sitting on his throne, what is it that you are desiring? You want to plead a cause. You want to plead a case. You don't just go before the king in his court just to say, I just wanted to say hi. You don't do that. you go before him to plead the case for something. There is a situation, there's a problem, there's something where you need answered, there's something going on, and you are asking for judgment. Call it whatever you want, but you're asking for judgment. I have a situation, and I'm asking for you to decree what we are to do in the situation. That's called judgment. And so we're looking for righteousness, and we are looking for justice to come forth from the throne of Yahweh. And guys, that's exactly what comes from him. Because he is righteous and he is just. Amen? People say, well, God's not fair. He never said he was fair. He's just. And there is a difference, right? All right. Job 33:26. So then man prays to God and he accepts him. He sees his face with a shout of joy and he restores to man his righteousness. What does it mean to have his righteousness restored to man? It means that we are now given his passive righteousness, and we are now given his life and given his word to teach us how to walk. And as we do that, we receive the blessing the Father has given as we walk in his word, but it does not just for us. It ends up having an impact on those around us as well. And that's why we do it, right? So that we can be a praise and a glory to his great name, because it's for his name's sake, not our own, right? Verse 27 says, he sings before men and says, I sinned and perverted what was right, and it was not repaid to me. He has redeemed my soul from going down into the pit, and my life shall look upon light. His life shall look upon light. What does it mean to look upon light? Well, what does Scripture say is the light? Did you ever notice that light was here before the sun, moon, and stars were created? Because in the beginning, Yah said, let there be light, and it was there. The sun, moon, and stars weren't created until later. And so we read in John, we see that he is the light, and that light was the life that is in men. So when we look towards the light, we're looking towards our Maker, we're looking towards our Creator. Psalm 98:2. The Lord has made known his salvation. He has revealed his righteousness in the sight of the nations. How has he revealed his righteousness in the sight of his nations? How is his salvation revealed in the eyes of the nations? Well, for one, when he brought them out of Egypt, his righteousness was revealed to all the nations because all nations heard what happened. And then the other thing, when he brought them to Sinai and gave them the Torah, when he brought them to Sinai and gave them his word by his Ruach, and there they are at Sinai, at Mount Sinai, and they're speaking of and receiving his word, doing all of these great things. All nations heard about that. When they went to Shechem, and here they are at Mount Gerizim and Ebal and Shechem, and there they are declaring the words of the covenant to establish it and put it in place. They're seeing the salvation of their God and his righteousness go before them to make their paths straight. How do we do this? We keep his word in front of us. Do not forsake his word. Keep his word in front of you. Verse 3, he has remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Amen. So we are to be not just a righteous people, we are to be a righteous nation. And by nation, I don't mean America. Although I wish America was still a righteous nation. I can't say it is. But we need to be a righteous people, but we need to be a righteous nation called by his name. In other words, a people called Israel. A people called by his name, called by his covenant, called by the things the Father has established. Because we need to be righteous people ourselves, but it's the people together that make up the whole, that make up the nation. If the people are corrupt, they make up a corrupt nation. If the people are righteous, they can make a righteous nation. And so this is the thing. It's not just a personal responsibility. It is a personal responsibility, but it's also a corporate responsibility. Because we do have responsibilities to one another. You know, oftentimes we say, well, it's just me and my relationship with Yahweh and that's it, and that's not the way it should be, because so much of the Torah, it tells us we need to have involvement with those around us. Okay? Deuteronomy 4:5-8 says this. So see, I have taught you statutes and rules as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the people, who when they hear all these statutes will say, surely this great nation, not just the individuals, but the nation itself, this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is to us whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? So he's saying the things that was set before us, his rules, his word that was set before us is righteous. And when we walk in it, we are walking in his righteousness. And when the nations see us properly walking out his word, it's going to be a testimony to the Most High. And they're going to look at you and to say, wow, God is with them. And it's not a matter of we're trying to do this so we can make our name great or we can make our name known. And we cannot attest to walk in his word if we're arguing with each other. If we're constantly arguing, yelling, and screaming and bickering with each other, then the world don't want that. They already got that. If we're walking in his word, then we're going to learn to find the areas where we can come in agreement and to find the areas that we can work things out. And if we do have a disagreement, then we are given scripture on how to handle it properly and to walk in accord with one another, with bringing each other back, even if that walking in accord with one another means, well, we don't agree, but we're better together than apart. Because let's face the facts. There is no one that exists that is going to agree with you 100% of the time. And if they do, they're lying. It's not about agreement. It's not about disagreement. It's about unity. And unity says there are some things that we're not going to agree on, but there is something more important, and that is to glorify the kingdom and to glorify the name of our God. And I don't want to stand in the way of that. All right, moving on. Proverbs 14:34. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Proverbs 15:9. The way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but he loves him who pursues righteousness. Proverbs 16:11 and 12. A just balance and scales are the Lord's. All the weights in the bag are his work. Guys, what did they used to use to weigh things out with? Stone, rocks. Why? Because a rock or stone didn't contract ritual impurity. So they would have the rocks that were in certain measurements, and they would do that. So the weights in the bag are the rocks. So all the work that we rely on for just weights and scales, well, whose standard are we using? Who made the rocks? Yahweh. So again, I think the one who created something has the right to establish how we're going to do it. Right? So verse 12 says, it is an abomination to kings to do evil, for the throne is established by righteousness. Again, if someone is in the kingdom, someone is on the throne, then they need to walk in righteousness and justice. Isaiah 26:2. Open the gates that the righteous nation that keeps faith may enter in. Think about that for a second, guys. That the righteous nation that keeps faith. What does it mean when it says keeps faith? There's an action there. That means you're walking in something. That means you're doing something about what you believe. It says you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Revelation 15:4 says, who will not fear, O Lord, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come to worship you, for your righteous acts have been revealed. Amen. Proverbs 29:27 says, an unjust man is an abomination to the righteous, but one whose way is straight is an abomination to the wicked. Makes me think of the scripture where it says, so we're calling good evil and evil good. Because to a righteous man, he sees the unjust man, and it's apprehensible. But here we have the wicked who are calling the righteous an abomination. The scales have turned, haven't they? We're not using just weights and balances anymore. We're not using the standard of Yahweh anymore. We're trying to establish things by our own work and our own identity. Right? So, moving on to the next. Genesis 6:11. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Now here's something. Where it says the earth was corrupt, the word is shachat. It means to decay, to cast off, to corrupt, to destroy. Here's a word, slowly infect. Because of sin, the world is infected. It was created perfectly, but now because of sin, it's infected, and now it's in a state of decay. I think we can look and see the world is in a state of decline, right? And so, because of this, the earth was filled with violence. Hey, what's the Hebrew word for violence, guys? Hamas. Coincidence? I think not. Do we see the world being filled with Hamas? No, not hummus. That probably wouldn't be too bad. The earth is filled with Hamas, and it's increasing. Why? Because the people are corrupt, not standing for righteousness. And so when righteousness is not there, violence is inevitable. Genesis 6:12, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. The earth was corrupt because mankind was corrupt. And the sins of mankind corrupted the earth. Think about that for a minute. The sins of a person actually gets to a place where it brings defilement on the land itself. Makes me think where the scripture says, the people are called by my name, if they will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and what? It didn't just say heal them, did it? Heal the land. The land itself is in need of healing. The land itself is in need of restoration. And we can play a role in that, or we can work against it. But if we're working against it, know that the Father is working towards restoration. So if we're working the other way, we're kind of working against him. Leviticus 18:25-28 says, because the entire land has become defiled, I am punishing the people who live there. I will cause the land to vomit them out. You must obey all my decrees and regulations. You must not commit any of these detestable sins. This applies both to the native-born Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. All these detestable activities are practiced by the people of the land where I am taking you, and this is how the land has become defiled. Again, because the people are doing detestable things, the land is defiled because of them. Verse 28 says, so do not defile the land and give it reason to vomit you out, as it will vomit out the people who live there now. That's a fair warning, isn't it? So what we have is now the flood is coming, and obviously the flood is judgment. There's no doubt. The flood is judgment upon the earth. But understand, when judgment comes, which side of it are you on? Judgment is only a bad thing if you're on the wrong side of it. Right? So when judgment came, the world was on the wrong side of judgment. But Noach and his family, it was deliverance to them. So they were delivered in the midst of judgment. Much like the water when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, and they came and they crossed the sea, the sea parted and they walked through on dry land. So here they are, they're going through. And to the people of Yah, to Israel, it was deliverance to them. But when the people of Egypt tried to cross, it was judgment. Same water, same land, same Yah, same pillar and fire. What was different? One were his people, one were not. So the word that's used for ark, when he says to build an ark in Genesis 6:14, is only used in reference to Noach and Moshe. The word where it says build an ark, there's no other places in Scripture where you find this word teva as for an ark. Now, it's neat. It just means a box or an ark. If you look in the Paleo, it means the mark, signature, or a sign, or house, family, and protection, and a great sight revealed. So what we have is the people who are in the house have been marked, and to see a great sight. Well, what's the mark that was there was a protection and a safety to them. They were set aside from the rest of the earth, weren't they? They were marked. And then because they were in the house, in the ark itself, really, because they were in the house, they saw, and much was revealed to them. They beheld great things. The Ark of the Covenant is Aaron, because that's the next question. Well, so if that's the only time that word's used for ark, then what about the Ark of the Covenant? That's Aaron. Now, the interesting thing about Aaron, it means, in the sense of gathering, it just really means a box. Okay, from the word ara, it means it can be an ark, it can be a chest, or it can be a coffin. I know we don't think about the Ark of the Covenant as a coffin, do we? Because it's not. But again, the context defines what you call it. So, aron is just a box. The difference, as far as what we call it and what it's used for, is what you put in it. Make sense? Hebrew makes a distinction between the ark of Noach and Moshe when it says she put him in a ark that she made and put him in the water and sent him that. That's the same word. Same word. Again, a deliverance of water by the ark. Anyway, so in the Ark of the Covenant, but both were used in a sense of gathering, because that is the idea, that we're gathering together for something. So both are used to gather, but they had different purposes. Okay? It's interesting, too, when we talk about translations, that in Greek they don't make a differentiation between these two words, but in the Hebrew they are two different words. So what we have for teva means a mark or a sign that protects the family to reveal a great sight. Think about this. In order to be protected, the family had to be in the ark. It's kind of, well, duh. In order to be protected, the family had to be in the ark. But then we have aron. The word aron means strength revealed through the head to secure life. In it was the testimony and the word. In order to be protected, it is to be in you. Yah said he's going to take his word and he's going to write it where? In your heart. You put it in your mind, put it in your inward parts, and it shall be written on your heart, that you will keep it, that you will do it, that you will learn to walk in his ways and everything that he has laid out for us, right? 1 Peter 3:20 says, sometime we're disobedient when once the long-suffering of God waited in the days of Noah while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. 8 people were saved by water. The judgment of the whole world, 8 people were saved and delivered by the water. What's 8? New beginning. New beginning. Genesis 6:21. Also take from all kinds of food that are eaten and collect it for yourself. It is to be food for you and them. Okay, so here's just a side note. It says take food that is eaten. In other words, the definition of food means that which you eat. That which was given that you can eat. Guys, how did Noah know what was a clean and unclean animal? Because how many animals did Noah take on the ark? We say, oh, well, 2 of each kind. Wrong. It's not what it says. He took 2 of each of the unclean animals, and it was done in pairs, guys, and then 7 pairs of clean animals. So, yeah, that kind of changes things a little bit, doesn't it? Here's something for thought. I wonder if Noah did what Yahweh told him because he loved him or because he had to. I wonder if the people Noah was warning about the flood coming and doing all these things was saying, well, maybe you're just taking your God a little too literally. Maybe you're just being legalistic in your observance. When he said built an ark, did he really mean build an ark? You're not even building a boat near water. What's your problem? Rain? You're kidding. Right? People fear and mock what they don't understand. And when Yah has given us something to do, it is ours to do it because it is to walk in his righteousness. If we don't have to understand it to do it. The understanding comes with an obedient heart. So the righteous were delivered, and who was removed? So here's some food for thought, guys. I'm gonna give a few scriptures here on this, and you kind of think about it and see what you think. Okay? So when the water came and the floods came, who was removed, the righteous or the unrighteous? The unrighteous were removed. The righteous remained. Genesis 7:1, Adonai said to Noah, come into the ark, you and your household, for I have seen that you alone are righteous before me. So, did the righteous go away, or did the wicked go away? The wicked went away, right? All right. Matthew 24:35-39. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But when that day and hour will come, no one knows, not the angels in heaven, not the Son, only the Father. For the Son of Man's coming will be just as it was in the days of Noach. What does that mean? He says when he returns, again, when he returns, he's going to judge, right? So when he returns, what's it going to be? Like it was just as it was in the days of Noah. It says back then, before the flood, people went on eating and drinking, taking wives, becoming wives, right up till the day Noah entered the ark. Okay, here's a question. Is it a sin to eat? Is it a sin to drink? Is it a sin to marry a wife? Is it a sin to be a wife? No. So this is not talking about just sinful behavior, although we have other scriptures that talk about that as well. But this is not just talking about sinful behavior. This is just talking about life. People were just living their lives, just doing their daily things. They were just living with no regard to what was coming. Verse 39. And they didn't know what was happening until the flood came and did what? Swept them all away. Swept who all away? The unrighteous. And it will be just like that when the Son of Man comes. So when the Son of Man comes, who's going to get taken away? Well, we've been told that when he comes, the righteous are going to be taken away. What does the Scripture say? Let's keep reading. Judgment came and removed the unrighteous. Matthew 5:5 says, Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Psalm 25:13 said, His soul will dwell at ease, and his seed shall inherit the earth. Speaking of who? The righteous. Psalm 37:9 through 11. Evildoers shall be cut off. Who shall be cut off? That means they will be removed. Evildoers will be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord shall inherit the earth. If you are removed from something, did you receive it as an inheritance? No, it's been taken away from you. Verse 10, For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. For a little while, and who's going away? The wicked shall not be. But you shall diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But, look at verse 11, the meek shall what? Inherit the earth. Now we go back to Matthew 5:5, where it says the meek shall inherit the earth. In what context did he pull that quote? Yes, he was quoting the Psalms. What context did he pull that quote from? Talking about judgment, talking about the unrighteous being cut off and removed, and the righteous remaining to inherit the earth. And it says, the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in an abundance of peace. Because when all the unrighteous are removed, what do you now have? Peace. Right? Psalm 37:22. For such as be blessed of him shall inherit the earth, but they that be cursed of him shall be cut off. So those that are blessed by him shall what? Inherit the earth. Proverbs 10:29 and 30. The way of the Lord is strength to the upright. Why would the upright need strength? Because you're going to have to go through some stuff. You need strength. It's his strength we're going to need. Right? The way of the Lord is strength to the upright, but destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. Look at verse 30. The righteous shall... What? Never be removed? The righteous shall never be removed? Well, if all the righteous go away from the earth, that means they were just removed. You hear me? The righteous will never be removed. But the wicked shall not inhabit the earth. So who's going away? The wicked are going away. Matthew 24:40. So 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. Does it tell us which one was taken and which one was left and why? It doesn't, does it? We kind of need to let the Scripture say what it says. 43. But know this, that if the master of the house had not known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. That's one of the reasons why we say, all these people that are trying to set dates when he's coming back, it's like, yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes up. We know he's coming back. We can know the season. We're not going to know the time or the hour of the day. No. Matthew 13:24. Look at this. He put another parable before them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, the enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away." Now we go to Mark chapter 4, and it talks about the sower sowing the word, sowing good seed. The seed is good. What are the differences in the parable of the sowing the seed? The ground is different. So how they received the seed and how they acted and behaved on that seed is what was different. That's what was changed. And so what we have here, so while they're there was good seed sown in the ground, and they received it. But then someone came in and planted bad seed, and they received that too. Kind of like we need to learn some discernment, right? But nonetheless, here we are. And good fruit did grow up. Good wheat did grow up. But then we have the tares and the weeds that are grown up with it. And so this has come to be known, come to be seen, that so now we have wheat and we have tares. So the plants come up and they bore grain, and the weeds appeared also. And the servants of the master of the house came and said, "Master, didn't you sow good seed in the field? So why does it have weeds?" And he said to them, "An enemy has done this." So the servant said to him, "Do you want us to go and gather them? You want us to go pull those weeds?" And what did he say? No. Because when you start gathering the weeds, you're going to root up the wheat with them. They are growing in the same ground. By now, they're intermingled. Their root systems are intermingled because the wheat is starting to produce fruit. The wheat is starting to produce fruit. They're being able to differentiate which is which. And so now we're at the point to where if we just uproot the tares, it's so entangled and such a part of that it's going to destroy the wheat at the same time. So what he says is this: "Let them both grow together until the time of the harvest." Okay, and guys, I think we're approaching the time of the harvest. "Let them both grow together till the time of the harvest. Then I will tell the reapers," who are the reapers? The angels. "Then tell the reapers, gather in," who? "The weeds first." Who's being gathered first? The weeds, which represents the unrighteous. So, again, who is removed? So gather in the weeds first, take them out and throw them in the fire, but then bring the wheat into the barn. So who's gathered up first and who's taken away? So now, back to our story. Genesis 7:2. "Of every clean beast you shall take by sevens." Again, not 2 by 2, 7 pairs. Male and female, the beasts that are not clean, take by 2. Take 2 pair, the male and his female, and then came the flood. So again, how did he know which was clean and which was unclean? Moving on. What was the first thing that Noah did when he came out of the ark? And we say, okay, the first thing Noah did when he came out of the ark, oh, that's easy. He planted a vineyard and he got drunk. Really? That's what you're going with. But that's what we hear. I mean, I've heard that a lot. Here's just food for thought. I mean, here in the South we call it common sense, but common sense ain't common, right? So here's thought. When you plant a vineyard, it takes a little bit of time for it to grow, and then to start to get fruit, and then to mature to a place where you can use it. It's just talking, how long does it take to plant them, to have them grow, and to have those vines start producing fruit? Guys, you don't plant a vine and produce fruit in the same year. Because it starts small, it has to grow, and then it has to start producing. It takes a little bit of time for that to even happen. Then, once you take the grapes, then you have to mash the grapes, and then you have to treat them, and then you have to wait in a period of time, and the fermentation, and it takes a process. So, even so, this is not like, in the same day, he planted a vineyard and got drunk. No. And guys, that's not the first thing he did when he came off the ark anyway. The very first thing he did when they came off the ark was to build an altar to Yahweh and make offerings on it. The very first thing he did when he came off the ark was to worship. Now that says something, doesn't it? He was thankful for everything that he'd been through, and he understood what was now ahead of him. Okay, So from Genesis 10:32, these were the families of the sons of Noach, according to their generations in their nations. From these nations of the earth were divided up after the flood. So the nations of the earth were divided up after the flood. Some of the descendants of Ham. So let's talk about some of the descendants of Ham. Not going deep in depth into it, but if you want to look into it, please feel free. But here's some of the descendants of Ham. Cush, which Cush is Ethiopia. Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means trouble. Oh, wait, what's Mitzrayim? Egypt. Puth. Canaan means lowered or humiliated. Nimrod. Nimrod means rebellion. He was king of Babel. What's Babel? Confusion. Rebellion and confusion go hand in hand, guys. And then we have Kasluhim, out of which came the Philistines. So talk about a family tree, right? Man, that's some family, right? Let's look on the other side of it. Let's look at some of the descendants of Shem. We have Arpachshad, which means healer or releaser. We have Shelah, which means sent. We have Ever, which is where we get the word Hebrew. Right? Ever is where we get the word Hebrew. And then we have Peleg, which means half or to divide. Then we have Re'u, which means a friend or a shepherd. Sarug, which means branch. Nahor, snorting, horse, dry, hot. Okay. All right, I don't quite get that one. Maybe he liked riding a horse. Maybe he was just always out of breath. You know, I don't know. Anyway, then we have Terah, which means to breathe or scent or blow. And then we have Avram. Avram was a descendant of Shem. And Avram would have known Shem. He was still alive when Avram was born. It's really amazing when you think about it. And the way the tradition goes is that Shem taught Avram about Yahweh. Genesis 11, 1 and 2. So the whole earth was one language and one speech. And we thought the UN had the corner and market on that. Verse 2, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and they dwelt there. Now here's something interesting. As they journeyed from the east, the word is Mekedem. Mekedem. Okay? Kedem means east, and it also means ancient or old. Let's see, one of the names for Yahweh, we call him, what was it? The Ancient of Days. So if we're journeying away from the Ancient One, who are we turning away from? Psalm 55:19 says, God shall hear and afflict them, and even he that abides of old, Selah, because they have no changes, therefore they fear not God. Micah 5:2, but you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth unto me he that is the ruler of Israel, whose goings have been from Kedem, from the Ancient One, from everlasting. So people journeyed away from Yahweh and they went to find their own way. And then they're like, so we're going to build this tower. And there's a couple different ways you can look at this tower. One, they can say, we're going to build this tower to ascend into the heavens so that we can ascend and make ourselves gods. They wanted to make a name for themselves, no matter how you call it. But then there's a stairway all the way up to the heaven. And if you look at a lot of the temples throughout the world and how they're made, they have these big staircases. And that wasn't necessarily so that they could ascend to their God. It was so they felt their God would come down to them, to bring their God down to their level. And so not only are they saying we're going to build this area so that we can ascend to the Most High, but we're also doing it in a way where we can comprehend and understand Yahweh. We're doing this so we can do that, and so that He will come down to us. And what's the record? God said, all right, you want me to come down there? I'm going to come down there. Kind of like, don't make me pull this car over. Or like, oh, so you want quail, huh? So, now we have this. So come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that has its top reaching up to the heaven. Why? So we can make a name for ourselves. What's that called? Pride. And not be scattered all over the earth. And not be scattered all over the earth. Didn't God say, take over the earth and fill it? So what did man say? I don't want to. Yeah. Genesis 11:6, Adonai said, look, the people are united. Oh, good. The people were united. The people worked in unity. guys understand, you can be united for the wrong thing. You can work together and do great things for the wrong reason. Understand that. So they have a single language, and see what they're starting to do. At this rate, nothing they set out to accomplish will be impossible for them. Yahweh said, because we are working together and having singleness of heart, really, we could do anything. That's dangerous. But guys, if that works that way on a negative scale, imagine how much more it works on a positive scale. If we unite our hearts and set ourselves to do what Yahweh told us to do and to keep His word, what kind of an impact could we make then? Because Yahweh says anything they set their heart out to do, they can do. What if we actually use it for good? You think we could change the world? I think so. I think so. When people are united, they can accomplish anything they set out to do. What was the purpose of their unity? Magnify themselves, make a name for themselves, build up a throne of the heavens. They also did not believe the word of Yahweh. Yahweh said He would no longer flood the whole earth. Oh, He will no longer flood the earth, but just in case another flood comes, we're going to build a spot where we can be above it. It's kind of like, But He said He wouldn't. But then we're going to do it anyway. And let's start by building a monument that was set to themselves so that we can reach the sky. When Yahweh said, go into all the earth and fill it. Repopulate. Again, one of these things to where we need to learn to walk in His word, His ways, and as we do that, we're going to be walking in His righteousness. Right, guys? And that's what we need to walk in. We need to follow His heart and to do it His way. Amen?